Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. Here to bring you the latest information that we have on multiple things in this morning's video. The first thing we'll talk about is the tropics. There's a big storm system out there in the Atlantic called Hurricane Kirk, and this will actually become a powerful hurricane before it's all said and done. But there is just about 100% chance that this is just going to continue to be a fish storm and not really bother anybody but the surface of the ocean and the fishes of the sea. So we will speak on it just a little bit, just because it is going to become such a powerful and impressive hurricane. But of course, we're not going to dive super deep into it or anything like that. There's a system behind it that's dubbed an Invest. That'll most likely become Leslie, and then we're certainly watching the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico for something to get going over the next maybe 7 to 10 days or something like that. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll break down what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Wednesday. And then stay tuned for the end of the video. We got some good news. There is a growing possibility we're going to get a cold front that finally makes it all the way to the eastern U.S. It doesn't just stop in the middle of the country. You know, we've been waiting for the next cold front for nearly a month now. I mean, it's been a while. We have not had a cool down since early September, you know, east of the Appalachian Mountains, especially in the southeast. So we'll speak on that. Some good news for you folks. I am starting to become pretty confident we're going to end up getting this cold front at the end of this weekend into early next week. So for you fall weather fans, stay tuned for that. There will be a timestamp up in the video for that. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others have an opportunity to do so too. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's make sure this is going to work for us, and it is. As always, we're on a good streak with this working. Sometimes I'll start the video and it is not working for me, so we're good to go. This is Hurricane Kirk. You know, it already looks like a pretty impressive hurricane, but believe it or not, as of right now, just a Category 1 hurricane. But it's very large. I mean, it's even bigger than what Helene was. Very large hurricane, and is set to become a powerful hurricane as it continues to move, you know, in this general direction and eventually just turn out to sea and not really bother much of anybody, and then completely begins to turn northeast as it continues to move into the North Atlantic. But right now, this is where it is, taking up a lot of ocean space out here. Very large, broad hurricane. And then there's a system behind it, which is most likely going to become Leslie in the coming days. I don't think either one of these systems are going to bother anybody. Now, of course, we're more confident on Kirk not bothering anybody, but the system behind it, you know, some things can still change with that. I have a feeling, and I mentioned this in yesterday morning's video, that we'll get some downtrends with the strength of the one behind it on model guidance. A lot of times when you have a powerful hurricane in front of another area of interest, the powerful hurricane will sometimes whiplash the system behind it. It already looks like it's kind of happening right now, and it'll prevent this from reaching some of, you know, the higher end potential that maybe it could if there wasn't another tropical system in front of it. But we were certainly watching both of these systems, and then we're watching just this entire area right here. You know, we talk about that broad area of low pressure over Central America that can sometimes generate energy on the Pacific or Atlantic side, and sometimes that energy can eventually get going and turn into a tropical cyclone. So we certainly are watching that huge circled area I just circled a little bit closer to home in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. So this is all the pieces on the table right now. No threats, nothing. You know, there's a lot of chatter out there about another storm coming. I actually had to make a post on my personal Facebook page last night to kind of let all my people know they're, you know, certainly know me a little bit closer to home, that there is not another storm coming. So just be careful what you believe. Some people just want to believe it, so it's easy for them to believe, you know. So yeah, believe it or not, there's people like that out there. So yeah, this is what's going on out here in the tropics. A little bit closer look at the National Hurricane Center update from 5 a.m. There's that, you know, area we are still watching, a 40% chance of a tropical development over the next 7 days. When I say tropical development, I mean there's in this case a 40% chance of a depression, tropical depression, or a named storm forming sometime in the next 7 days. You got Kirk, which is an 80-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane moving northwest already, so it's starting to move north, you know, already, which means it's already in the beginning stages of turning, you know, north and eventually just staying out to sea. It's a 984 millibar hurricane, 80 mile per hour Category 1. and it's going to continue to go out to sea. But we got Invest 91L behind it, which will likely become Leslie. We will have to watch to see if this does eventually get going, but it's saying, hey, a tropical depression could form over the next day or so, and then if it becomes a storm, then obviously we get Leslie out of it. So just taking a closer peek at Kirk, which is an impressive hurricane, a very impressive outflow to this system. You can tell that it has all the ingredients in the world for this to really take off, and by the time we get into tonight, this will most likely become a 100+ mile per hour Category 2 hurricane. By the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, it becomes a major Category 3 hurricane. And right now, the peak intensity of this should happen sometime Friday afternoon, and it could make it all the way to Category 4 status. Right now, peak intensity is a 125 mile per hour Category 3 hurricane. So I think this is definitely going to be an impressive show out here in the Atlantic. I feel more comfortable saying that because it isn't going to bother land, but definitely going to be a powerhouse hurricane. One of those hurricanes that is very strong, but just turns out to sea and doesn't really bother anybody. So, but just to, take a look at really, and I'm just going to show one model here, just the GFS. No point in really comparing both. I went through all of them, and all of them pretty much show the same. Let's just take a look at the GFS. And then we're going to start this off 24 hours in advance. So tomorrow morning, there's Kirk. There's soon to be Leslie behind it. And that's just an area of low pressure scooting across the North Atlantic. But as you could tell, Kirk gets strong, turns out to sea. By the time we're in the Saturday morning, this thing is almost moving due north. Here comes what will be Leslie behind it. Hanging a little bit low in latitude, a little bit further south. But, model guidance is now trending for even this to turn north pretty fast. And turns north, around the same spot that, Hurricane Kirk turns north. So Leslie, the GFS Monday evening showing a 974 millibar hurricane. It's Category 1 or 2 hurricane. It's a pretty strong one. And like I said, I've said this, and it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. This doesn't bother anybody, but I would not be surprised if the strength of what will be Leslie downtrends a little bit. Could totally be wrong. You see it a lot, but this turns out to sea. Heads north and just gets on out of here and doesn't bother anybody. So, don't let anybody fool you here. They're going to be talking heavily about this, kind of leaving a window open that this could impact land. But I'm pretty confident that both of these systems will go out to sea. The one behind it, Leslie, of course, we need to watch a little bit more because things could change in the steering currents. Pretty confident both of these will be fish storms. And the ensembles are too. This is the EPS ensemble. And that is Kirk. That's the signal for Kirk, kind of exiting your screen, if you will. Strong signal. None of these members, hang west. All of them turn out to sea. But this is, what will be Leslie. There's a little bit more spread. Some of these hanging further south. Some of them turning north pretty fast. And this goes all the way out to Sunday evening. Now, if we take this about a week out, all the way until next Wednesday morning, there's a pretty solid spread, and there's another signal showing up behind this too, but no use in really talking about that right now. But that's not a good color. Let's see. A lot of members turning out to sea, but there is some members hanging south. So you certainly want to watch these right here. These look like they're heading out to sea. You've got to watch these members. Not saying we're going to have multiple hurricanes, but you remember this just makes up 51 members, throws them all on an output for us, and shows all the scenarios on the table. So moving past this, no point in harping on this much more than that. We'll continue to watch it though. A little bit closer to home, we're just going to go on and zoom right into the southeast. We'll start off 24 hours in advance once again. What about, what's going on here in the Gulf? We've had some crazy runs over the last, I would say, 24 to 36 hours. But there's no consistency. So what we do know is as we're getting into the weekend, we're going to have a lot of tropical moisture in the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of it's going to have a hard time getting north. But, I do think this is going to bring very rainy conditions across Florida and maybe along the immediate Gulf coastline. Now, we start to get into next week. We're getting into Tuesday morning. So we're already 6 days out. You see an L that's dancing around down here in the Gulf of Mexico, but it's not really developing into anything. And it never does. It does try to develop on the eastern side of Florida. But pretty much all this does is bring a lot of rain to Florida. We go 10 days out, nothing ever gets going off and into the Gulf of Mexico. All right, now what about the European model? Same thing, just a lot of green dancing around there. could get, a big push of moisture. Definitely the GFS and the Euro kind of disagree there. Big push of moisture into the Gulf coastline that you see right here in Mississippi, Alabama, Panhandle of Florida. But then it gets kind of shunted back down south into the Gulf of Mexico. Does anything get going? You got that L dancing around, some energy trying to consolidate. But it just looks like a whole lot of rain. See all the green and splotches of yellow and red and orange over Florida? That's a lot of tropical rain. And eventually the Euro, 6 or so days from now, does develop a solid low pressure, moves it over Florida, then off the east coast of Florida, and then heads out into the Atlantic. So, we're certainly watching this. I think that, if you had to average all the scenarios out, it looks like a weak low pressure, very broad weak low pressure, could just dump a whole lot of rain on Florida over the course of the next, not starting right now, but especially as we get closer to the weekend onward in the next week, a lot of rain's possible. And if you look at the rain, let's back this up a little bit. This is the Weather Prediction Center. So this is the day. This is again a Thursday, Friday, not a whole lot, just your typical Florida pop-ups adding up rain. And then you start to get into Saturday and see all the colors showing up in the Gulf of Mexico, and then they kind of ride over Florida. It's really as we get into next week, and this only goes out 1 week, and all the way out to the morning of October 9th, and several inches of rain eventually adds up next week in the peninsula of Florida. So I do think this is going to bring some probably breezy conditions, heavy rain, but definitely stay tuned because things could change really quickly with this. So, don't let anybody fool you or overhype this because there's absolutely nothing to overhype. The ensemble guidance does still show some stronger members, and I think it's worth absolutely leaving the door open for the possibility for a stronger storm system. But right now, confidence is more on the side of this being a weaker system and delivering a whole lot of tropical rains across Florida. So, what's wild, if you look at a broad look at this, look at this mean cutoff of a lot of rain down here, pretty much right along the Gulf Coast and into Florida to nothing. And this is over the next week. It gets dry fast, doesn't it? Well, that is because a big cold front comes down here and you get some sort of stalled boundary, and this really dries out the atmosphere. And we're going to talk about this here at the end of the video after we cover what we're about to cover as far as the country for today. And speaking of the country for today, hey, it's going to be a pretty quiet weather day. A big time zonal flow over the country, not a whole lot going on. The jet is definitely kind of shunted northward, if you will, so there's not a whole lot of weather going across the lower 48. But as far as what's happening today or right now, we got some showers across New England, some showers across northern sections of Minnesota, the UP of Michigan. You do got some scattered downpours across Florida, but even that doesn't look very widespread at all. So that's what's going on right now. As we continue to look at watches, warnings, and advisories, we do have some dense fog across Tennessee and surrounding areas, the southern Alps region. We got red flag warnings across the high plains in that hot pink color, dry and windy. High wind watches up for areas in Montana. That might be warnings. That's watches and warnings, a combination of both. So definitely breezy conditions, gusty winds developing up there. And it's pretty hot across California. I would say that's the big story is the heat across California, heat advisories in the valley, excessive heat warnings, even some red flag warnings kind of tangled in both. So it is hot across the southwest. So the good news is this is the first time we've seen this in a while. The excessive rainfall outlook, everything's below 5%. So there's no even green on your screen. So there's no risk of flash flooding anywhere. We're having an opportunity to dry up fast. The lingering effects of Helene is pretty much out of here finally. So, and even the risk of thunderstorms, definitely no real risk of severe weather. But Florida, is kind of the only area that could have some thunderstorms a day. But even there, it's not very widespread. So the southeast, Florida could get those pop-up showers and storms still well into a summer-type pattern, even though it's early October. That's pretty normal for Florida. And I'm not saying we're not going to get any storm action up here in Virginia and North Carolina. We could very well get a rumble of thunder, some pop-up downpours from Virginia down to the Carolinas, heck, maybe all the way down to Georgia. But certainly nothing widespread. It seems like the only way we can get rain in the Carolinas these days is from a tropical system. That is honestly where we've gotten 90% of our rain, at least in my neck of the woods in the Midlands of South Carolina over the last 2 months, is a tropical system. It's hard to get it from just normal kind of storm action and stuff like that these days, but you can see the moisture really bubbling up here in the Gulf of Mexico. I think this will continue to build down here, but not really bothering anybody right now. So pretty quiet day across the southeast, really. In the northeast, we are getting some shower activity this morning. This will continue to cruise over, PA, New York State, a little bit of activity down here in the mid-Atlantic, the Tidewater. Showers will eventually greet you guys in Vermont. Kind of a cloudy day to kind of mix with the vibrant fall colors that you got in some of these areas up here. I'm starting to see some photos kind of oozing out of this area showing the beautiful fall colors. So, if you got any pictures of that, you live up here in Vermont, New Hampshire, New England, anywhere, and you're starting to see some pretty fall colors, definitely tag me in them. And Twitter X or Facebook or wherever. I would love to see them. It does seem like, the fall colors have kind of been put on the back burner because of what's been going on with Helene and the sadness that came with that. But hopefully we can all start to, improve our mood, get in some good spirits and those things. So the south central U.S., we could get some storms that could make it to the southern coastline of Texas. But everybody else, it is a quiet weather day. In fact, you're waking up this morning to some pretty chilly conditions across the middle of the country, but there ain't a whole lot going on across the south central U.S. And the north central U.S., kind of the same deal. Ain't a whole lot going on at all. Some showers could, make its way across the northern counties in Minnesota. We get into tomorrow morning at just a flow that's kind of pushed to your north. So, all the weather's pretty much pushed to your north. I know Lisa up here in the UP and Michigan's been, upset about, the extension of summer up here. Trust me, if we know the weather, we know that there's probably going to be an abrupt shift to fall, and then the next thing you know it'll be winter for the next several months up here. So, but anyways, quiet weather in the north central U.S. and in the western U.S., folks, it's not any different. It's pretty quiet. There's not a whole lot to talk about as far as the daily forecast today. It's just going to be one of your quieter weather days across the lower 48 of the year, I would say. So temperatures, nice fall-like air mass across kind of the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, heck, even the UP and Michigan. I know that's not, my dog's in there creating an earthquake. He's a big dog. Anyways, but I would say this is nothing below average for you folks up here, anything like that. But definitely still a nice, pleasant fall-like day across this area of the country. The interior sections of New England, 50s and 60s. You still got the mugginess down here in the deep south. We are getting to October, so even though you're in a pattern that, promotes more mugginess and just more humid conditions and warmer temperatures, you're pretty much starting to get away from widespread 90s now. You can still get them, but you're not going to see them as much. Temperatures out west, cooler air in the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, but it is blazing hot across the southwest. Valleys of California getting into the 90s and 100s. Southwest into the 90s and 100s. And pretty warm across the middle of the country. 80s, even some low 90s scattered about. So as far as the cool down that I mentioned, first off, we'll start off by showing you guys the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This goes from October 7th through the 11th. This was issued yesterday. Unfortunately, for my friends out west, a very high confident level that we're going to get above average temperatures. I mean, that is a pretty huge blob of above average temperatures predicted across all the Rockies, the middle of the country. For us eastern U.S. people, we have a chance at near normal conditions and slightly below average temperature conditions. So cool down on the way, it looks like, and nothing crazy substantial, but stuff that we should be seeing this time of the year, I would add. And if you look at dew points, which Weather Bill changed some things up, I'm not sure if I like it or not. It actually fits more of what it should be, but I still like the vibrant colors of the other way it showed it. But these are dew points, not temperatures. So the green you see on your map, where it says the 60s, I mean, that's more humid air. and I'm going to get this in motion. You're going to see brown show up, and it's going to say dew points in the 50s, 40s, and 30s. That's real dry air. This is a great way this time of the year to really find a cold front, find dry air. So we'll start this off Sunday morning, October the 6th, and then we'll show you temperatures here in a second. This is the Euro. Check out how we get into Sunday afternoon. A cold front will be making its way as you're, watching some NFL football out and about, doing some things in the yard Sunday. A cold front will be making its way through the Midwest. By the time we're waking up Monday morning, we got a cold front blasting through Nashville, Memphis, Little Rock. And then by the time we get into Monday evening, this is getting all the way down to the deep south. The cold front's right into here, separating that very moist air in the southeast and the dry air behind the cold front. And then this finally, Tuesday afternoon, finally blasts through the southeast, and pumpkin spice latte for everybody. This is going to get everybody back in the fall mood, and confidence is pretty high now that this is on the way. And this is a deep digging cross country cold front. I would say eastern, western U.S. type cold front, and this could even ooze down into Florida too. And the air mass behind this kind of lasts, has some longevity to it. Sticks around for a while, and we go all the way out to October 11th, and it's looking pretty nice out here. So what's this going to do? Obviously, it's going to bring the cooler temperatures, but it's also going to push any tropical activity that tries to get going in the Gulf away. These cold fronts act as a pushing mechanism, the steering mechanism to kind of push any kind of tropical activity on out of here. So temperatures associated with this cold front are going to be nice. We get into Sunday, still a warm day across a big chunk of the country. We get into Monday morning. Look at these low temperatures across, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. Nothing unusual really for October, the morning of October 7th standards. It really isn't, but it's definitely a change up. One last kind of really warm day across the South Monday, and then we get into Tuesday. This is Tuesday morning, and this isn't forecast temperatures. This is just off one run of the Euro, but we're starting to get some better confidence in this. And look at these temperatures. Starting to get in the 50s all the way down to Alabama, Mississippi, North Georgia. And then we start to get into next Wednesday morning, a week from today. Look at these lower temperatures kind of spreading across the entire central and eastern U.S. especially. Finally getting some fall air into here. And you look at these high temperatures. Only in the 70s, lower humidity. And, this air sticks around, folks. This will really kickstart the leaves to start to change, even outside the higher elevations. As, obviously the days shorten. They don't have anything to do with temperatures. The days inevitably shorten anyways, which is a big factor in these leaves changing, the shorter days. But obviously temperatures are too. That's kind of the other wild card, and we haven't really had that lately. So I think this will kickstart the leaves to begin to change, no doubt. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. I've definitely been a little tired this morning. I have not been able to get up like I normally do, like at around 3:34. It's been very difficult to get back in routine, that's for sure. So just that's what happens when you chase and you stay up for about 28, 30 hours straight. And I would argue I stayed up a little bit more than that, because even though I kind of slept on and off Friday when I got home, it was only in like 1 to 2 hour intervals. That never was a full night of sleep. So I was up for about 36, 38 hours pretty much. So still just, lingering effects of that, and I remember when I chased Idalia last year, it was the same way. It took me about a week to get going again. So definitely asking for prayers for that. But there's definitely prayers that need to go out to more important situations, like the folks in the mountains of North Carolina, the, folks in South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida that's been heavily impacted by this tropical system. Praying for you folks. That's all I got. We're not going to have evening videos, for right now. There's nothing dangerous to talk about that's going to threaten us. So that'll get put on the back burner for now. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.